All right, Jason Rona back here in the JConcepts garage, and we're here once again with Fred Reep. Fred, it's been a long time, and we started thinking about this the other day that we talked a lot about Bigfoot 4, the renovation and the restoration that's going on with the truck, and we kind of wanted to jump back into it. We kind of have to go backwards here a little bit and kind of fill in some of the blanks from before. But Fred talked to us about going back to last year, 2022. You went up to the Bigfoot Open House, and that was an event that you wanted to attend, and we got some footage out there of the trucks running. But then you jumped into doing some work over on number 4.
Yeah, made the trek all the way up to Pacific, Missouri. It's kind of a yearly task for everybody to go up there. It's awesome, a free event that Bigfoot holds once a year. This year it's going to be, July 8th, and a lot of great things coming up. We'll get to that. But yes, 2022, an awesome event. Got a lot of work done on Bigfoot 4 that weekend. Seeing all these fans gather at the open house and just the excitement. They've been following what I've been posting on the progress of Bigfoot 4. So, people always come up asking questions. They can't wait for it to come out. This is probably going to be the year everybody's going to get their, prayers answered for Bigfoot 4. But anyway, yes, back to, it seems forever ago. A lot of work has gone on. Remembering back now, we had a lot of steering issues as far as getting everything cleaned. At that point, I believe in the restoration, things were starting to go back on the chassis. The chassis was finally done. Engine was getting ready to go back in. So the task is, and what takes so long is, this project started back in 2018. Mm-hmm. So it seems like forever. Everybody was donating and helping with their time to do this. It's just not a full-time job for anybody. So the guys, the dream team came out. They were helping out. We got all these little details that need to be done. So you pull the steering system out of the container, and now it's the daunting task of cleaning it, going through, checking wires, and refreshing everything back. Like what we do after our RC race is, you go back, you tear the thing down, you refresh everything, and it's all like new again. So that's kind of where we were at that point, and getting the truck back together again.
Yeah, when we go back and kind of look at some of these videos, and it's nice enough that when you guys do these trips and work weekends, you do some videos. We were checking things out, looking back. One of the main accomplishments after the open house was they're able to get the transfer case back into the truck and kind of get that set up. Like you mentioned, the steering lines, you had a lot of cleanup and a lot of work to do there. And it was a busy work day, but you had some extra help in there. I believe Travis Sutton was there that day, and Gene mentioned that helped him lift that transfer case and get that into the truck.
Yeah, it was kind of the muscle behind all that. Yeah, the transfer case is another thing that we had gotten done. Gene and I had the task of taking that all apart and getting it all back together, making sure it's all right, putting all brand new seals in it so it doesn't leak. So yeah, a lot of work. Travis did help get that thing. I mean, it's no easy task to do. I mean, you kind of appreciate what the guys did back in the day when you're out in the field changing this stuff. It's a lot of muscle and hard work. You have to deal with heat, grime, dirt, oil. It's a mess, but it's all fresh again.
Kind of all the things you don't really like to be a part of is really what's a part of that game. So we kind of, bumping ahead in the timeline to October now of 2022. Basically what we have is, we reviewed the videos. We have a lot of work with the Bufkas were out there helping. And maybe you can explain a little bit about, having the two of them helping with a truck like this. And it almost seems like there's a moment in every one of these videos where it's like, oh, well, we're going to have to machine something. We're going to have to change something. This didn't fit or whatever. Right. And kind of getting up to, October here. And talk to us about their involvement and kind of help.
Yeah, Mike and Bill Bufka, true assets to the team. As we know, Bill Bufka worked as a machinist at Bigfoot back in the day. He did a lot of, creating and inventing kind of what I did here at JConcepts as far as, making some stuff work. Again, doing these builds and trying to get this stuff back up to snuff again, you're gonna have to rebuild one-off parts. And Bill Bufka, a tremendous asset. His son Mike Bufka, the brass ring fab dude from RC, doing his little chassis and stuff like that. A fantastic welder. He does a little bit of the CAD work on the side. So we did some, I guess at that point, some certain fab work, and those guys tag team, and it really helped out a lot, getting the welding done and all that.
Yeah, I mean, what we looked at here is there was a weekend where you brought up 2 tires, and it's funny because it doesn't seem like that big of an accomplishment, but when you're moving these monster tires around, which came from Georgia, they're in storage there in Georgia,
right,
bringing them up to Pacific or then into Sullivan, Missouri. You brought 2 tires up that weekend. Lonny explains to us that the truck used to be used as a video game console or something at one point, where they would actually put people into the truck cab, and it was like used as a video game, right? Yeah,
I mean, Ford's done it all. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people don't know about that truck was involved with. Just who knew? I mean, there are fans that know, but it was transformed into like a promotional thing for a video game. So alterations were made to the truck. We're now rewinding some of what they did to make it more racy or fresh again. We did a lot of alterations to the brake pedal. There were some modifications where you can unhook the brake pedal and get it out of the way, so the controls for the video game were in there. Mike and Bill restored that as far as fabrication, and it's a lot of work to get that stuff done.
And according to the video, we talked a little bit. Gene came in and he started cleaning up, painting the drive shafts, getting ready for that next assembly step. But Gene obviously real instrumental in getting a lot of these things done. A lot of lines, a lot of the plumbing, a lot of these different things that he's able to come up with his contacts and contributing to the build.
Yeah, power steering lines, again, old and brittle, has to be replaced. A lot of the stuff here that you're seeing that's getting put back on the truck has to be new, just out of the longevity and to keep the truck going, because you have old lines that get impregnated with dirt and metal material. It has to be removed and replaced with new. Otherwise, if a particle releases, you can damage equipment that's a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, I mean, when you're really looking at these photos and these videos, what I'm noticing is there's just so much that's actually even tucked away and hidden that you don't really get to see, which is inside the chassis rails. Right. Might wind around the axle housing, and there's a lot of stuff going on here that is really pretty critical. That once it's all together, you don't necessarily see because it's a little more hidden, but this is the stuff that really makes the thing go.
Yeah, when you start sticking your head down the chassis rails and poking around in there and looking, you also need a flashlight because some of it's really tucked away and hidden. There's a lot going on in there that you don't really appreciate standing back and looking at the truck as a fan. But again, a lot of stuff going on in there, and it's important to redo it and do it right.
Yeah, another thing Lonny kind of brought to the attention here was they started cleaning up and getting the self-center rear steering, kind of the apparatus of all that he talked about that Roy Hoosier might have worked on back in the day and came up with. Talk to us about getting that type of equipment cleaned up, kind of fitted back, and kind of making sure that it works again.
Yeah, age is an enemy. Dirt and corrosion is an enemy. The thing, you don't run it. Things get stored away. There's atmosphere and temperature changes in a storage facility or a container that these parts were in. So a lot of these switches and things, you got to replace it because the connections will corrode internally that you can't even necessarily see. So to save a future problem down the road that you got to trace, you got to get ahead of the problem and replace some of these wearable items. So you're not out there looking like a fool trying to get your steering going when it's just something you should have replaced to begin with.
Shout out to my guys down at Eldon, Missouri at Miller Auto Supply. They supplied us with all the hydraulic lines. Retrofitted them, I guess you could say, with new and improved. A lot of them were old, deteriorated, kind of dry rotted, going down to the rear steering cylinders. Finished up the rear steering cylinders, painting them today. That's all ready to be hooked up. Got the pumps mounted.
And this is kind of, going back, this is in obviously October of 2022, but things are starting to ramp up here a little bit. I mean, you're getting a lot of little things done, cleaning, a little painting, reassembly. But in November, we kind of jump ahead, and November was mostly like you made a couple trips and brought some more tires up and visited with the Kramers, and were able to get those tires, up there with the rest of the truck. So it's almost everything is in one location.
Yeah, everything's all in one package, sort of say, and then that way everybody has the ability to do. If one project's getting held up, they can go and do another project. So like Mike Bufka went there and did the tabs for the snake bite wheels, so we can put those discs on a real nice clean look. Did an awesome job doing. That's why these guys are on the team. They can get the job done.
So, December was basically some time off in December. Not a lot of necessarily work action going on with the truck, but I'm sure a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, because there's parts you have to kind of source, figure out. I know Lonny makes some comments along the way. He's like, hey, Fred, you got another job. We got to figure this out.
Yeah. Get
us a belt, do this, do that. So, where things really start kind of really moving forward here, we get into 2023. And a lot of action starts happening now. We got videos back with Lonny and you making trips up. This was one particular trip we talked about where you went up to Alkydigger and you ended up getting the injector system that you've been waiting on, seems like forever.
Yeah. And
talk to us about hooking up with Jim Kramer, getting the new injector, and then kind of bringing it back over to the shop there.
Yeah, this injector, we wanted to put the air filter back out of the hood. It was kind of a classic look to me that signified, the direction we were going with Bigfoot 4 and its restoration. The new upright Enderley injector was really important. Again, another project that got held back because of COVID. Just, the access to, getting materials to make the parts and all that. Finally got it done up at Alkydigger. And took that thing up to Bigfoot 4. The engine had come back and starting to put all the pieces to the puzzle. And that's the most recognizable piece of the truck, is this massive engine that sticks out of the front of it. So met up with Jim Kramer. We took that thing out there and start now going to assemble that stuff.
Yeah, obviously the engine coming in, exciting, kind of getting that going, putting the injector on there. Jim kind of explains to us a little bit in one of the videos he did. He talked about, as everybody does, sort of the Bigfoot 4's kind of position in the monster truck world is almost like a transition vehicle. It started off when he started with it, as a very kind of forward-thinking truck. The straight rail frame, the little longer leaf spring setup, so it had a little more travel. They got the planetary axles adapted to that truck, making it more durable. So it became this workhorse that Jim's talking about, and through the years updating to the point where John has this big crash with it. Then they go into the shop. They thought it was gone. They resurrected the truck and altered the suspension, put the nitrogen charged shocks on there all the way around. Engine stuff again, more roll cage work. The front-facing four-link setup,
right,
and getting some more travel out of it again, and which is kind of in its present configuration. But both Lonny and Jim kind of make the mention that they think it's definitely one of, if not the best leaf spring truck that was ever out there, and I'm sure there's no arguments for me.
Today here with Lonny Childress and Jason at Gateway Classic Mustang in Sullivan, Missouri, and as you can see, we're by Bigfoot number 4 on one of its final stages of restoration.
Man, we sure hope so. It's been a long, hard road. A lot of hurdles that we've had to overcome. One of our biggest hurdles was getting the engine rebuilt. Unfortunately, we had it at Ed Dixon's shop for a couple of years. He was the last guy we think that actually rebuilt it for Bigfoot. He used to do them all at the same.
He did.
Unfortunately, Ed passed away before he got the chance to redo it for us. So fortunately, I finally talked our engine guy into doing it. Dave McLane at McLane's Automotive. He's a big Ford guy. Rebuilds anything. Great guy. Great shop. We use him for a lot of our.
And he's up the street.
Yeah, he's just down the street here
close.
in Cuba.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, he's finally got the power plant done. So that is a huge step forward for us. in getting this thing put back together.
The reason I'm here today with Fred Reep, the owner of the truck, and we bought the injector for the engine. One of the last pieces to the puzzle. A vertical inverted engine injector took 2 years to build with COVID and everything.
Right.
It's a work of art. This thing is going to be nice looking. It's going to look just like it should.
Right.
Air cleaner's going to look right. I mean, the guy's doing a great job. He got this body halfway mounted, so.
Now we've got the body all the way mounted. We've made all the mounts and everything. We did that before we sandblasted and repainted the chassis. So I mean, really, we're just in reassembly mode now. Unfortunately, this is a deal where we're doing it with a group of volunteer guys. So it's tough to get us all together at the same time. But a couple weeks, we've got another work weekend scheduled. So hopefully we can maybe even get the power plant and the transmission back in it, drive shafts in it, things like that. So
it's kind of cool. You got ex-drivers who actually drove the truck. Like Gene Patterson comes up and helps you out on it whenever he can.
Right.
And he always loved this truck. And this truck, well, he actually gave personality to this truck when it was snakebite.
Right.
And so he has a long history with it. So he's up here working on it. He wants to see it run as bad as Fred does, or
absolutely,
you do.
Absolutely.
He really does.
Yeah.
So, and me too. I spent a lot of time in it. I don't think there's a Bigfoot driver around that didn't spend some time in this truck.
Right.
It was a transition truck. It really was.
Exactly. One of the best leaf spring trucks that ever was, as far as I'm concerned, in its current configuration.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And then John Piant drove it in
Well, John's come out several times and lended us.
Nashville and cleaned the whole underneath out.
Right.
Remember that?
Yep.
And I thought, well, that truck won't run again. You get it back to the shop, and it gets resurrected. The steel body comes off completely. It goes to tube up here, and then tube underneath here. Not tube, but we changed the suspension drastically.
Right.
Put like a floating leaf spring on it. They put the roll cage on it, put a plastic body on it, and came back. And what's great about it, we put nitrogen shocks on it, so it gave the drivers a feel for what the newer trucks are going to be. So they could get in this thing and get a half-ass feel of what it's going to feel like when they transition to a bigger truck, a newer truck.
Right.
So that's what I mean. That's why it was so instrumental in all its life.
Yeah.
Because the first military frame truck that really stiffened it up, this thing's a workhorse.
Yeah.
Always has been.
Right.
And a staple of the Bigfoot line. I mean, everybody drove it. And now it's going to run again.
Yep. We're going to bring it back.
We have an engine.
We have an engine. We're super excited about that.
So I am too. Really excited to see it.
So hopefully we'll get her done maybe before the open house and get it out in front of everybody to see.
Nah, that would be something.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Are you that ambitious?
You want to do your last crush in this?
No. I mean, yes, but no. I want to.
You can do your second to last crush.
Look, I just had a birthday. I turned 72. I want a nice, cushy truck.
I'll never forget.
But I'll drive her around the block.
You were with me when I did my first show in this truck.
Yep.
And I remember when I ran up to the
cars.
cars.
That's why I had this little twist in the front.
No. I had nothing to do with that.
I think it was from you.
No, had nothing to do with that. But I remember going up to those cars and just kind of cringing up. And I hit them and I thought,
it's not like that.
Wow.
Honey. It's not like that.
Wow, this thing's soft. Let's go back and get some. I want to hit these cars. It was a great truck. Great truck.
I'm just happy to see it go back together, and I can't wait. And I hope it's done before open house.
That would be great.
Man, that'd be a big plus.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
And if it is, y'all people better come out and see it.
See you soon.
Yeah, had that crash not had happened, maybe 4 still wouldn't have evolved the way it did. And they needed that truck in service. And Bob Chandler, the genius in his mind, was able to come up, and I guess Dan Patrick was also involved in that. Developing this new leaf spring system in the front to allow more of it controlling the ride height of the truck, and relying on that nitrogen shock up there. So very innovative. It took a leaf spring truck to handle going up against these new tubular chassis trucks.
Yeah, and as a lot of the drivers explained, that depending on the course, the truck was extremely competitive because it was still a little more on the heavy side, around 12,000 pounds. But if you're hitting cars, sometimes that would allow you to drive through the car and a little lower, as opposed to some of the lighter trucks hitting a straight up car it wanted to just send them straight up, and that made Ford still competitive.
Yeah, and where you have a lighter truck kind of wanting to float across the top of the surface, where Bigfoot 4 is a little heavier, I got to get that bite in the turns and always keep that maintaining that forward momentum, getting it to the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they mentioned that throughout the 90s, then it became a vehicle that was a trainer. They could put it in put a driver in there, they give them a feel of to the next level, and then from there they'd go to the 4-link, the trucks that they're using almost more today.
Right.
But it was a truck almost for everybody that drove it there at the shop.
Yeah, almost everybody who was a driver back then, had their spot in that truck at one point in time.
Yeah, and that's why you're getting so many helpers. You're getting so many former drivers coming to help work on the truck because they want to see this thing again.
Yeah, I mean, they have their passion. They lived it. They experienced it. They had some of the best times and probably even some of the worst times working on that truck. But it's definitely a part of them. They want to be involved in it, and that's what makes it so great. And you have all this expertise now of all these guys coming together. It's phenomenal on how it's coming out.
So we got kind of getting into February was we talked a little bit before about getting the engine in, but now we're really starting to get it all in there, all the components stacked on top. You start to realize that we need a different fuel pump. So talk to us about kind of getting into a little larger fuel pump.
Yeah, just through Alkydigger and their expertise there, they kind of helped us out as far as now we're running. The engine at one point, the blower was removed. So now you had a naturally aspirated engine. It didn't need quite as much fuel flow as the supercharged engine. So now we're having to backpedal a little bit. Now we're needing to upgrade the fuel pump area to make sure it has enough fuel. It stinks. It's really bad when you run out of fuel because then you start leaning out the engine, which is very, very bad. So you can always have more fuel and just reroute it back into the fuel tank. So we went to an 80A Enderley fuel pump, was what it originally had on it. Now we're up to a 110. We're able to deliver that fuel there. Scott and Kathy Hartsock up here in Bushnell, Florida, they were able to help us out as far as getting some fuel delivered to this truck.
And not to kind of say that there's any difference, but the fact that this is kind of a Ford-based engine is a little bit of a specialty also because they're not as readily available, all the parts to assemble sort of this style Ford-based engine.
Yeah, I mean, Bob Pal-Freeman, he was the lead mechanic back in the day, engineering these trucks, making sure they worked every weekend, and we're always 110%. And you have to have it the Bigfoot way. So that's what we were adamant about is, not just have any Tom, Dick, or Harry work on this engine. It had to be done the Bigfoot way. So again, all the parts that Bigfoot would have used back in the day are all the parts going back into that engine. The fuel pumps, we just did an upgrade, but it's the same style fuel pump that Bigfoot used. So it's nothing any out of the realm being special, but it's making it work.
So, we jump again, with the connection with, Bigfoot and stuff. You guys got now a new JAZ fuel cell in there.
Yeah.
And so Lonny kind of brings us up to speed on kind of getting that component in the truck and the chassis, and talk to us about kind of incorporating that, and also the 4-link bars. Started getting some of the new 4-link bars after repaint, retouch, getting those in there. There's all kinds of pivots and bushings, and I mean it's just like one little thing after another, right?
Yeah, a lot of things are one-off, so you have to go back, redraw them in the computer, have them all remachined. Heim joints are very important in a monster truck. They got to be nice and tight. Old worn out Heim joints. If you break something in there, you're going to be in big trouble. So all that's all new. All of it's refreshed. And again, that time, effort, labor, trying to find the parts, getting them all in there, cleaned up, ready to go. It's a lot of work.
So the fuel cell, talk to us a little bit about that.
JAZ stepping up. Bigfoot hooking us up with JAZ Racing Products to get a freshened. It had original JAZ fuel cell. JAZ stepping up, putting in a new fuel cell in there, all refreshed, all new, clean, just the same look as it had before, and we're grateful for that.
And we had some more action from the Bufkas who were in there helping, with the more of the.
How do you
the
know all
four
this
links.
stuff? You got a cheat sheet.
I
You
got-
got a cheat sheet over there.
I got a mega cheat sheet here. The Bufka's in there working on the four links with Gene, and then putting the bump stops, which is, to me, I always kind of like the look of these things. These rubber bump stops, and they said they had to do a little machine work and a little specialty type work to get these things back in.
Yeah, off of heavy trucks, and we were able to find the original ones, and they just needed some adapting like they did back in the day. The Bufkas, the go-to guys to get that stuff machined and fitted for stuff like that, and fantastic jobs, just like the way it is.
And then we kind of moved into the next stop, here, which was in April. Gene kind of walks us through getting a new radiator and some different items that you had to put into the truck. So talk to us about first those new items, and it's just more things that bolts in there that never really think about.
Yeah, you don't think about, a lot of these parts, you just can't go to the store and buy it. So we got a brand new radiator for it. Very important to keep that engine cooled. And, the old radiators, the way they were on the aluminum, kind of epoxied together. So that stuff wears away. You just don't want to put the old one back in. So we get the new one, and we needed the fittings added to it. Everything's screw in and secured, and the fittings. So, Mike and Bill Bufka stepping up again, machining parts to now customizing a brand new radiator to go in Bigfoot 4.
I mean, and this goes behind the rear of the cage, right?
Right. It's not in the front like a traditional automobile is, or the way Bigfoot 4 may have been back in the day. I don't think 4 actually had it ever up there. But anyway, yeah, this is behind the driver, behind the roll cage. And it just sits back there. You have a fan, pusher fan that pushes the air, circulates it across the fins of the radiator, to keep that thing cool.
So, and then part of that is, you talked about a recovery tank. What's going on with these parts here?
Yeah, recovery tank, as it builds pressure, and you got to relieve pressure. You don't want the coolant, draining out on the ground, hot coolant. So it has a recovery bottle. JAZ again, using their product to recover the expanded coolant out of the radiator. Again, not dropping it on the ground, so it can go back into the radiator. So it kind of flows when it heats up, and then cools and contracts and goes back in the radiator. Again, just keeping a mess off of the track, basically.
And just another part of everything that's going on with these vehicles, that when you don't really realize how many moving and working parts have to go into this thing, just idling.
Yeah, even a brand new transmission cooler, back there. So everything has got to be cooled. You can't overheat the transmission. You got to have a cooler for that. You can't put the old one back on because, again, you have debris and material that possibly could be impregnated in that. You don't want it releasing and going in and destroying a brand new refreshed transmission. So again, like you said, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that you don't even think about. But when you have this thing and you're starting to put it back together, you're really thinking about it and say, we may want to replace this.
So Lonny talked to us about the kind of on the injection system, more plumbing going on there, hooking up linkages, and so talk to us about a little bit of that.
Yeah, again, going to an vertical injector instead of the hat that we had on it, you got to change the linkages, and then you got to change the throttle cable. So now you got to remove and replumb everything again, just to get it back in working order. You got to fabricate brackets, you got to replace cables, you got to change injectors, you got to change lines. So again, another daunting task. Now it's all complete, so we're ready to move on to the next task.
Yeah, and Lonny mentioned that you had to kind of notch something in the front of the cab there, right, to have some more space for the new injection system, because there's linkage back there now.
Right, there's linkage back there now. It may have been on the front when the original upright injector, when you would most famously see it as snake bite. You can see the big injector sticking out of the hood with the air cleaner. That's probably the best way that you could have seen it. Also, Ford has made alterations to the cage. The bars, when they switched to a 97 body, it didn't fit the way it was traditionally. So they, cut the cage. They, rolled back the bars. We had to replace all that to fit the new 80s style body, the 90s style body. So Yeah, a lot of that, a hoop and the dashboard there, that was changed to fit, the 97 body. Now we're going back. We're having to trim the bars out of it and, move it so some linkage and things work again.
And we're keep moving fast in April here. We got some videos, some shots of our old buddy Cheech doing some kind of dressing on the shocks. He wanted to get some more paint on the bodies themselves, and we kind of sanded them, scuffed them up a little bit so you could lay some new paint on them, and just kind of do some things because they were just black oxide coated.
Yeah, Dan Patrick, they did the task of rebuilding the shocks, making them right, and we had them black oxide coated, just to show all the nice details of the shocks. Needed to get some paint on there because the black oxide will tendency to wear off. Corrosion can start. So, get a fresh coat of paint on there and make them look nice and shiny.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously you had many helpers out there, but getting those things looking good is really important because, Lonny talks about later that, when you get the shocks on there, it starts to look more like the monster truck, right?
Yeah, it has that kind of look. We went back to the retro, the gold anodized caps. That was really important to me. That's one of the things that really set the standard for me back in the day of the look of that shock. We wanted to go back to there, and hopefully we did a great job with that.
So, Lonny talked about putting some new Odyssey batteries in there. You got those dropped in the back, and this is kind of the start of getting that electrical system fired up.
Right, and again, as we're rebuilding this truck, Bigfoot has their sponsors, and we want to honor those sponsors. It is a Bigfoot truck, so all the parts that have come, JAZ stepping up on board, Hedman Hedders. We got the Odyssey batteries, in there. Bigfoot helped provide those to get those back in it, to keep everything Bigfoot and to go along with their stable line and support the sponsors that support them.
Yeah, and it explains here that more lines again, more cables, more electrical kind of coming together here with the battery, the batteries, and to tuck these wires around and kind of like wiring up the RC car when we do it, but it's still got to be kind of clean.
Yeah, it's got to be clean. It's got to look right, and it's got to be assembled correctly. You can't have any short wires or loose wires. Gene and all the guys back there doing an awesome job doing that. I guess we got left is to wire an onboard charger. That way we can just plug the cord in it and go. You don't have to carry around a charger. We'll have a charger right on the truck, getting that thing as soon as it's off the track, maintaining those batteries again.
So another thing Lonny brought to attention there is you had to get a source. So we talked about that, another blower belt for it, get the right length. And then you had some crankcase vent hoses on there that, to me kind of like stand out as something that I don't really remember that much, but obviously a necessary part of the assembly.
Yeah, you got to vent all the gases from expanding in the crankcase, so we wanted to fresh those up. Unfortunately, they made it into the trash can, but I guess they've been reclaimed because a couple fans out there, they were interested in buying those things. A lot of this old junk that's coming up before, it means a lot to these fans, and they want a piece of it.
Yeah, and getting the blower belt. Talk to us about another length there.
Yeah, the blower belt was actually the blower belt was good. It was the fuel pump belt. We changed the fuel pump.
Okay.
The fuel pump that was on it was a little smaller than the fuel pump that it has now, so we had to go in and radius part of the bracket so the bigger fuel pump would fit. So the belt we had was actually fine.
So we bumped into Lonny again in video on April 23rd, another work weekend. He was putting the safety ring back in the back. Talk to us about the importance of these type of things.
Yeah, and in case driver's incapacitated, somebody outside of the truck, except for the RII, if the truck crashes, they can just go to the back bumper. It's kind of a standard on all these things. You pull that ring and it kills all the electrical in the truck. Very, very important piece of equipment. It was missing on 4. We were able to make one again, and it's back home.
So we got the trap door, which Lonny calls it, probably people that were driving that truck, but kind of for people that don't realize this truck, it's actually not really easy to get in and out of because of the generational changes over the years. It was originally made as the driver's side, left driver's side operation. It had a door and a cab back in the day. Then you went to the roll cage, and now pretty soon you're coming up through the trap door to get in, and you got to crawl over everything if you're coming in that way. So this door and all these things on the bottom are really important.
Right. And the floor pan of 4 originally was aluminum. It was never Lexan. Where you could see through it. That was changed, and the step was removed from the over by the roll cage where you'd actually step on the step and then crawl through the window like the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
That was since removed, and then I guess somebody thought it was easier to go up through this trap door in the floor, which is kind of easier to access. It's probably a little easier to communicate with the driver that way, but we're putting it all back the way it was, and have different actual ways for people to get up into the truck.
And more throttle linkage stuff, Lonnie explained. We, doing some detailing there, getting things hooked up so they're operational.
Right, and making sure it all works correctly. You put in a new cable, you got to make sure the measurements right. You got to, be able, when you push the pedal, is it actually moving it enough to get your throttle butterflies open all the way, and make sure they close all the way. So it's all that adjustment. It's very critical. Like these RC, nitro cars, all that stuff's super critical. You got to do it right.
So another big thing, the shocks were mounted.
Yeah.
Shocks are on the truck. There, we talked about them being touched up on the black part, getting them sprayed. But then now they're on the truck, and that was another thing of you got bushings and bolts and a lot of different little things to get that to that point. But they're on.
Yeah, they're on. All the heim joints, the attachment points, the upper portion of the shock and the lower portion, all needed to be replaced. They're all loose and sloppy. It's important. This truck is going to run. I don't know to what extent. We'll see what the future holds for these retro monster trucks. But it's all ready to go. And again, you got to tackle it now as you're building it to make sure the truck runs right at the end.
So, kind of moving forward, there's another thing Lonnie brought up was the primer bottle. Before, I think one of the things like, when you first located the truck, when we were messing with it, and I guess I didn't really realize that when you're in the cab, there was basically a squirt bottle and there was like a little funnel thing inside the cab that you squirt fuel into, which helps kind of get the engine ignited and going, right?
Right.
And now you've had to relocate, or you've did something different because it's not as easy to operate.
Right. Well, 4 had a primer on it at one time. What that does is actually squirts fuel into the injector rail or down into the ports. Again, when you're trying to start it, it starts getting the fire going and starts driving that fuel pump to deliver the alcohol. So that was, I guess, removed at one point. Now we're putting it back on since the type of injector it's running. It's very difficult in an upright injector to squirt the fuel in, or you would need a pit guy to go up there and squirt it down into the air filter element. We're not doing that. We're hitting the easy button now, having the onboard primer. You're going to hit that button. It's going to squirt the fuel in for you in the right area of the engine, and then get that fire started where you don't need an extra crew guy to get it going.
Perfect. I mean, I know when we were messing with the truck early, that was a big part of it is, doing that and doing that automatically. I mean, I can't imagine how much easier that is.
Yeah, it was kind of a mess too, getting that squirt bottle in there. If you dribble it and it got over the RII system, it makes a mess, and you don't want to ruin electrical equipment. This way, it's a lot safer. It's all self-contained. You got the right appropriate bottle to hold the gasoline in, and it's all plumbed right, done right. So another task off the list.
Yeah, I mean,
list.
Then moving April 29th, Lonnie starts updating us on more fluids being put into the engine, the crankcase, and just adding fluids everywhere, which is another thing. I'm thinking I don't really think about this stuff, and it's just like there's fluid everywhere, right? And you got to fill it up and make sure it's the right one, and this thing's full of wires and plumbing and fluid and coolers and coolant. I mean, it's a monster.
Yeah, you think your service on your car is $100. Well, BIGFOOT 4, the service bill on this just for the fluid itself, not including filters, is like $400, and we're still not even done yet. There's some other parts that still need to be filled, so that bill's going to go up. So people you don't realize it's an unexpected cost, and that's what makes these things tick. It's expensive to run a monster truck.
And Gene shows us now that we have all the electrical kind of hooked up and going, got the cables ran, He's kind of got the electrical turned on here, and we're getting some rear steer action.
Yeah, we're getting some rear steer action. Really exciting there. You see the beast starting to come to life. We also have a little video, if you haven't quite caught it on my feed there, is that, we're turning the engine over. So it's, a matter of days now to where we get things bolted up, the headers and all that, and we start to light the fire.
Yeah, I saw Gene, hitting the buttons there and starting to turn things over, and I was getting pretty excited. I was like, man, This is like kind of the scary, like, fun part of turning things over, right?
Right. And then, we'll have our engine guy back, and then, make sure everything's tuned right, make sure it's running right. It's not going to go out the door without it all running right. We had some brake pedal issues, getting some parts done for that. Nothing gets turned on in that truck without having the brakes working 100%. So it's very important.
And, next step here, we're into May 1st, which is kind of getting us up to more recent here. A lot of painting, primer, body filler, sanding. Now we're in the body shop with this fiberglass Starr body that you've had for quite a while. Probably the biggest part that makes this look like Bigfoot 4 is the body.
Right.
And getting that right. So now we're sanding, priming. Talk to us about getting there in the shop and seeing the videos and the photos of kind of laying some, we'll call it paint. We're laying some paint.
Yeah, again, it's just not going out there with the spray can and painting this thing. It's all got to be done right. You got to make sure any little imperfections are filled up. It's going to, get the Bigfoot colors on there, the PPG paint, all, again, staying with the brands that support Bigfoot. It's got to be done right. You got to go sand and prime the body. It's a lot of effort that people don't realize. Oh, just get the truck going. No, it's a lot of effort behind them.
Yeah, and the other thing I like to see,
get that done.
I'm the tire body guy. That's what I like. And I'm, to me, when I look at the tires, wheels, and bodies, that's the part that's exciting to me. But you're also doing the detailing. I noticed on the fenders, cutting some of the flanges off. There's a lot of part that's on there that really isn't there once you trim this thing out and paint it. So talk to us about kind of prepping these panels and cutting off unnecessary areas, and then you're kind of getting that ready. Yeah,
to get that true race look on the body, I guess, the way they did, run it back in the day. There's some fiberglassing going, for some mounts behind. There's some tabs that got to get fiberglassed in that help keep the panels from moving on the body. So, yeah, again, it's even... what you see face value on the outside of the truck, there's work behind those body panels that needs to get done to bring it to that level.
And, and what we got here is the fenders. We got the rear tailgate.
Those are all ready to go. They're all primered and ready. Now, I guess this weekend they're going to tackle, the cab, the front clip, and the front bumper. So, working their way back towards the front of the truck. That's another big undertaking. You got to sand, prime, paint, fill in the blemishes, and get it ready for that Bigfoot blue.
And I guess the last thing I have on my cheat sheet here is talking about the headers. That's the last update that I've seen. The last pictures of you got some headers going. You ran into something that you wanted to go a certain direction. You're going to go a different direction because of the availability, and but you went the whole 9 yards, and we got some ceramic coating, and they're chrome, and they look fancy, right?
Yeah, traditional chrome. When you put some heat to them, they'll start to discolor. See like a rainbow bluish effect to the chrome. These here are ceramic coated through Hedman Hedders. So, they're all restored, refreshed, looking brilliant. So they're going to be a real noticeable piece of the engine when it's ready to go.
And really, once you get these on in a few moments, really what I have next is what is next?
What is next? A lot. You take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because, you'll make a progression in one area, and then you'll think about it. It's like, we got to do this still. So backpedal a little bit, tires and wheels. We got to brush, this Firestone tires that are on it. We're looking pretty good. We got to go back and we got to sandblast and repaint the wheels to give it that nice classic look. So a lot of stuff there. Again, body. There's some paint masks that got to be done. So there's still some more prep work going on. You're just going to have to stay tuned and see the rest of the video.
Hey guys, we got a lot done this weekend. First of all, I got to thank Gene Patterson, John Piant, Andrew Perry, better known as Sippy, Dave Childress. Am I missing anybody? Oh, Mike and Bill Bufka. We had a big crew yesterday. Gene, John, and I were here today. So the Bufka's got this little Lexan filler panel templated and made. They also got the front bump stops on. They had to make some parts to make those go on. So they machined the parts and got those installed. Yesterday, Dave and Gene got all the battery cables, all the big heavy duty cables fabricated and installed. So we actually have power now. Cool thing is the water pump works, the cooling fans work. RII light comes on, so we got some dash lights, so things are starting to come alive. Today we filled a bunch of fluids. Engine oil is topped off. Front steering fluid is as full as we can get it till we get it running and start cycling it. Transfer case is full. Rear steering is all full. We've got, if you look up under the cab here, I don't know if you can quite see it, but we have a primer pump system here. So we've got that pretty close to being finished. If you look up inside the cab, you can see the red Halon bottle right there. So Gene got that installed. Yesterday, Sippy and I got the bed sides, tailgate, rear bumper, cab extender. So everything from the cab back, body-wise, is prepped and in the booth to be primed. I have to get that shot probably tomorrow. And hey, Gene, what do you got for us? We have rear steering. See you soon.
Again, this is all in a time crunch. You know, July 8th is coming up. These guys are all volunteering their time to get this thing done. Lonny has his own business to run with Gateway Classic Mustang. They have a lot of events they have to go to. He has maybe only 8 days left that he can physically work on that truck. So a lot's got to happen. It's going to be at the open house, we'll tell you that. What fashion it is. The person that I am and showing up at JConcepts event, we usually come out 100%. It's going to be cutting it close, but hopefully it's there. I know the guys are working really hard to get it done, and just for the Bigfoot fans, it's going to be a daunting task, but I think we can get it done.